talked about the importance of networking and creating those connections, those community connections that really sustain the work that we're doing. And we thought that with recent developments in the International Baccalaureate, specifically with the pilot program introducing a systems transformation diploma, that it would be a really good opportunity to use the International Baccalaureate context to really build that conversation about how we network and how we take a more strategic approach, I guess, to disseminating systems thinking and supporting successful implementations. So we're very fortunate to have 4 panelists with us today. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, where they're located, and what your relationship is to the IB program. And Jenny, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my name's Jenny. I live in The Hague in the Netherlands, and I work for the IB as a curriculum designer. Previously a teacher, I've worked for the IB for 15 years, and I lead on the systems transformation pilot. So I'm the person overseeing the pilot from the IB side, doing the curriculum development work of the pilot, which we plan to launch mainstream to all IB schools in 2030. So schools in 140 countries in 2030. At the moment, it's very small. But yeah, my job is to support and develop it from the IB side. Really happy to be with you.
Great, thank you. Eivind?
Yeah, my name is Eivind Lodemel, and I am one of the course designers for the course and also currently teaching the course. I'm based at the United World College of Southeast Asia, which is in Singapore. UWC is, I suppose, by some measures, one of the biggest international schools in the world with close to 6,000 students.
And we're very grateful for Eivind to be here in the middle of his night. So sleep is an option, apparently. So, Özgün, you want to?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm primary school teacher working in an independent school in Toronto. So I've been using system thinking in my classroom for about like 9 years now, I think. Started back in like 2017. So I always work in IB schools from the beginning in my career. And I try to integrate system thinking in the PYP framework, and especially within the unit of inquiry. Over time, it really became part of I teach rather than something additional. So actually, the more I use it, the more I saw its impact. So not only in my classroom, but also in how I think in my life. So that's why I continue to stay involved through different projects and communities in Turkey and System Dynamic Society as well. And recently, we're also work on research project which called applicability of system thinking in IBPYP. So which is currently under review. We work with Evrim and Hasret together on that research paper. So yeah, that's all.
Very good. Thank you. Evrim.
Hi, it's great to be here. I'm Evrim Yalçın. I'm located in Izmir, Turkey. As Özgün said, we are recently working on writing research about IB and the PYP and system thinking relationship. I'm the PYP coordinator of an IB school, and at the same time, I'm kindergarten principal. So since 2013, we are an IB PYP school, but at the same time, after 2018, we became an IB Continuum school. For a long time, since Özgün was working with us, we were implementing system thinking in our schools, in primary and kindergarten, in our transdisciplinary units, sometimes separately, sometimes whole units. Wise we implemented, and for 3 or 4 years, I think we are working on that project. We're implementing with 4th grade students, and it's now under review. Hopefully it will be published soon. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So Jeff made a note in chat that PYP refers to the primary years program. I know a lot of us think of International Baccalaureate as being for advanced students, but they actually have programs for primary years, the PYP, and then for middle grades, MYP. So we thought we'd kind of set the context by having Eivind and Jenny give us some background on this new program, the Systems Transformation Diploma Program. So I hand it off to whoever's driving, Eivind or.
Yeah, I'll take us through a couple of just brief points. I won't take too long with this, but just to put it in context a little bit. So, first of all, thank you for having us. We've been interested in the work with the Systems Dynamics Society for a long time because we know you've been working for much longer than any of us on thinking about systems. It was also great to see Peter Senge talking and mentioning the need to kind of scale these ideas. And the network and the fact that he was talking about the IB as possibly a platform for this. And so we're pleased to tell you that that is actually the work that we are hopefully doing here and getting all of that set up. So there's a lot. I mean, systems thinking has existed for a long time, but we believe that there's a lot of attention on it at the moment, and I think that this is a good. We feel inspired because it's a good moment, I think, to bring systems thinking to the masses in a much more kind of formal way. I think there's an appetite for it that maybe has not been there in the same way before, and you see it in the way that leaders and politicians and educators talk. And this talking about systems is really much more central, I think. For us, it's really like at the core of it is this ability to teaching students to hold multiple perspectives at once, working in ambiguity, navigating tensions that don't resolve neatly, and so that's why there's one of those are some of the reasons why the IB has now sort of started developing this pilot. So the pilot is currently a program for the 16, 17, 18-year-olds, so grade 11 and 12 of high school. But it's a 300-hour course, which means that for a school like ours, for instance, we are spending close to 6 hours a week with the students that are in this systems transformation course. Now, systems thinking is the kind of core thing that really is at the heart of the course, and so thinking about complexity and understanding complexity. But it's also a kind of bias towards action program. So the idea here is that once they do have an understanding of systems, then what? Then the hope is that they will take action. And so actually this, Peter talked a little bit about PBL and project-based learning. And so really systems transformation is a course that takes systems thinking as the core entry point to understand complex systems and complex challenges, but then to use kind of project work and autonomous work where the students are taking a lot of agency to go and sort of deal with sometimes the systemic issues in their own communities. So the intention is that I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. I know people are getting a little bit tired. So we're going through the different sort of levels of iteration and everything like that. And that is worked between these 4 schools. Obviously, the aim here is to make it something that is scalable, as Jenny said, in 2030, to go out to all of the different schools that are doing IB. And then the purpose is really here is this idea of making or giving students the skill sets to be change makers in their own right. And so there is this idea of taking that systems thinking element and using it for good or for moving in a certain direction. We are here, if anything, to learn from you. We are really excited about being with the Systems Dynamics Society. One of the things that is a challenge in the scaling of all of this is that we need to prepare this in a way where many different schools all around the world are going to be able to manage it. And of course, if you go to any school, you won't necessarily find anyone with systems thinking or systems dynamics training. And so one of the things that we're excited about here is to work with all of you and to hear about your experiences and to see sort of what we can take away. We need to look for different entry points and different ways of engaging with systems. And so a student that is, very artistic will look at that kind of visual representation element of it and understanding through kind of visual tools as something that's powerful. Someone that's good in language might, and go into it with the kind of the idea of interviewing stakeholders and extracting information from a system and then working with that. But also, of course, those that come from a kind of a STEM background will be very interested in the models and looking at kind of those the variables and looking at change over time and being able to kind of make sense of the world in that way. So the hope is that this systems transformation course, when it goes out to all of the schools, we have been able to prepare it in such a way that many different teachers and many different students are all going to have different entry points in which to engage with systems thinking on what can potentially be quite a high level. We've seen with the students that we have now taken through this course for the last 2 years that they really can reach quite high levels of understanding of systems when they're given the chance. So with that, I will say that we can take the questions and see where it takes us.
Very good.
Thanks, Eivind.
Yes, appreciate it. So I'll start with a very quick question for all the panelists. I'd like to hear the answers from kind of both frameworks, right? For both perspectives, from the curriculum side and from the teacher side. It's my understanding that teachers across the IB spectrum have a lot of autonomy in how they approach their content, their pedagogy. How much structure does IB need to provide? And I'd like to hear that from Jenny's perspective, especially, but then also from Evrim and Özgün. So.
I can start us off, I guess. I think normally in the IB, we have a huge amount of freedom in primary. It gets slightly less in middle, and it gets slightly less again in our 16 to 18. So the higher up you get, and that's partly because of the high stakes assessment. And I think what's really interesting about this course is we're taking a big chunk out of that final 2 years of high school. It's a double course in that final 2 years of high school, and it counts for 2 of their 6 subjects towards university admission, college credit. So we've had to be a bit tighter than we would be at, say, like primary level, where it's more like a framework that you can put over your whatever you want to do. So we've had to be a little bit tighter, especially around the assessment. But the curriculum we've left super open, I would say, in terms of not mandating too much. But the assessment tasks, the case studies, the project-based tasks, the competency portfolios, that stuff is quite tight because I have to have comparability because I need it to count for university admission. So it's a balance for us of what we try to do is take it up a level to the fundamental principles and concepts and things that we want, and then leave schools room to pick which examples, which tools they're going to use to deliver those things, as long as we have the kind of outcomes and agreements and big conceptual understandings are the same, and how you get there is more up to you. But I'd love to hear from a teacher's perspective. That's the intention, but from our side, but I'd love to hear from the others about what it actually is in practice.
So Evrim and Özgün, I mean, you have
I can share my ideas. PYP is, as Jenny said, it's more free. It's just a framework. It gives us the frame, and we can shape all our curriculum accordingly. For example, we're following Ministry of Education's curriculum and Cambridge curriculum for English. So we put everything together and map it within the perspective of IB PYP, and we are pretty much free in that in PYP. And as we go up to MYP, it's getting a little bit restricted, as Jenny said, but still there is space there. So if we begin implementing system dynamics in kindergarten and primary, which is PYP, with a big percentage, and if we can continue with a smaller percentage in middle school, at least maybe in the high school part in diploma, students will be ready to create more or to go more deeper in the system. So it will be, I think, more successful. That's how I believe.
For me as a teacher, I think since the PYP is already inquiry-based and it provides a flexible structure, definitely for me as a teacher, where system thinking can be naturally integrated in it. So I've been embedded system thinking tools into units of inquiry, and I don't have to think like, oh, am I like I have to match the curriculum, all the outcomes. No, I don't have to think about it because it becomes naturally embedded in the curriculum actually in IB. So and also like using simple tools at different states of inquiry helps students go deeper, right? So like we were using, like it's good to use it as an inquiry in IB, so it's naturally embedded in it. And IB is an international curriculum. It offers like level of flexibility, like transferability, and you can apply similar approaches at different contexts and countries also, whilst adapting to local needs too. So I think that flexibility makes it much easier to integrate system thinking in meaningful ways. Like rather than feeling like structure restricted by a fixed structure in it. So as a teacher, I was like, happy to work in IB rather than like, because other schools in Turkey, specifically in government schools, you have to follow that national curriculum. So it's really hard to match with the curriculum outcomes. But IB gives us that flexibility, which is naturally embedded in system thinking tools. You will see when you work with the system thinking tools, like.
So getting started, but you guys both had a lot of support from the Systems Thinking Association of Turkey, right? Do you think
A lot.
you would
We
have
had
been
a lot.
successful without that, or how would you have gone about it? So.
I think we wouldn't be successful without that. That was great. Yes, we get the trainings, we went to the symposiums and everything, but Emre Bey was with us all the time. Still, he is with us all the time. He's supporting. We're just writing to him. We're just calling him. We're in this unit. We want to implement this. How can we help? He comes to school. We're so lucky. So we sit down together once in, I don't know how many years ago, but once we implemented a whole transdisciplinary unit using system thinking tools, whole unit. It was about inventions and inventions, I think. We started from Leonardo da Vinci, and then we came to great points with that. And after implementing that unit, we felt the taste of it, and we always wanted to continue. That support was very, very helpful.
Without that support, it's possible, but without that support, like doing that much things is kind of impossible. The level of the support and collaboration with this community has been like truly significant for me, like especially. Like there are many experienced, generous people, like professors, like engineers, like medical doctors, like they're working all together in the System Thinking Association in Turkey. Whenever you have question, they're willing to help you, like guide you, like we learn together basically. So this is the collective, like it's actually volunteer-driven environment. So I think because it's volunteer, it's more valuable for me, I think.
Right. We have a lot of questions coming in from chat, so let's. Amy, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
I think somebody already answered one of my questions. I was just curious about the process of rolling out the new program to the high schools, if it's like done in a certain way. And I'm also curious if there's going to be, I think she was just mentioning this, an intentional systems thinking element added to the curriculum at the primary middle school years.
Yeah, so the plan with this one, we started off super small. It was almost like a proof of concept more than a pilot, just with these 4 pioneer pilot schools that Eivind is one of the pilot schools for, and he can talk about from that perspective. So we started just with 4 to kind of get it going and get proof we could do it. The idea is that we'll scale up again in 2028 to a group of kind of early adopters, and that will help us grow a kind of capacity building, growing some teachers, some people who then will become teacher trainers and examiners, and then we'll go mainstream in 2030. So we've started with this very small, very iterative, very agile, very small group that I work with very closely one-on-one. Then we're going to a slightly bigger group in 2028, and then the idea is to go mainstream in 2030. So we're trying to build that sort of capacity. And then I think it's really important to differentiate between two things, though. This is a standalone course. So this is a 300-hour, last 2 years of high school standalone course on systems, which is an incredible luxury to have, like a real space to do this in real depth. And then what the IB is also looking at is embedding systems thinking for all subjects, all age groups, everywhere, in economics, in biology, in maths, whatever. So it's kind of a two-pronged attack. We've got, on the one hand, we've got this really special, dedicated 300-hour course, last 2 years of high school, takes the place of 2 subjects out of their diploma. And then we've got the wider work on with primary, with middle, with high school, with all subjects on how do we embed systems thinking kind of everywhere, really.
Great, thank you. So we're going to try to alternate here between hands up and things in chat. Jeff, yeah, meddling parents are always welcome.
Well, I was in on the real early work with this. Gosh, it's been probably 9 or 10 years ago with Peter Senge and the IB and the International School of Indiana. And what I witnessed occurring in the lower school, the PYP group, was a couple of really interesting things. One was the professional development and growth of the teachers was off the charts. And I actually saw a couple of what I would call really good, seasoned educators who had just kind of hit cruise control in their professional work, suddenly hit an accelerator. And it was really fascinating to watch it from the professional development perspective. The other thing that frustrated me as a parent and as a person who really kind of helped get the international school here into this work with Peter and his gang at MIT was it became much more difficult to integrate the systems work the further we went up in grades because of the siloification of education. And I'm not sure that nut has ever truly been cracked here. And I love the fact that you're working on it in the IB or the diploma program as well, because the one thing I kept trying to get them to think about and look at was the systems work, the grounding work that these kids got in their younger years set them up to really rock and roll with the TOK when they got to the DP program. And we've never really truly gotten here in Indianapolis with it for a multitude of reasons, but the potential there is phenomenal. And as a parent, I've seen results with each of my kids in very different ways of they're learning how to be thinkers and not just test takers that a lot of the other schools focus all their attention on. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, it's very good points. And I'm curious, we've focused a lot on benefits for students, but should we also be thinking about benefits for teachers and kind of transforming teaching as a profession, as opposed to being strictly content delivery? Any of you have thoughts on that? So.
Eivind, you'd be great to talk about this because as an experienced teacher, like how has it been different for you teaching this compared to your normal music teaching?
Yeah, so I mean, I come from the arts. I've done a few different things, but it's been an interesting journey. I mean, one of the things for us to think about is kind of in the scaling up of this, because I mean, in the pilot schools, I think all the teachers that are there have an enormous appetite for professional development. So, you know, we tend to greedily absorb all of the information that's being given to us, and we go seek it out. And dealing with kind of systems thinking and systems dynamics has been an interesting space for that, because we have found lots and lots of resources, but not so much that's necessarily made for this exact kind of age group and pedagogy that's there. So that has been kind of one of these things that we've been trying to figure out as we go. And so I think that definitely, I think it's like when you all that are here know this, but when you become a systems thinker, you cannot help but see everything in systems. And of course, that has happened to us just as much as it has happened to our students. But I think that in terms of that journey as a teacher, there's two things to be mindful of, which is if this subject is to be successful across all of the different schools, there also needs to be a way that there's an accessibility to it for the kind of entry point teacher when they come in kind of new to it, to be able to kind of find their way in. And then also, I think, to develop a kind of a clearer sort of pedagogy of what might we expect learning to look like at the different age groups. And I think this is where, in the room that we are right now, there's a lot of experience, because many of you have worked, I've been hearing just today about people working with everything from K to 12, and with Peter saying about this kind of innate systems intelligence of children. There is this question of like, when do we teach it out of them? And then if we have taught it out of them, if we say we get them back at 16, what can we expect the starting point to be? And what can we expect the kind of the steps of progress to see what systems thinking learning over 2 years might look like? And those are conversations that, are too long for now. But one of the things that Jenny and I are excited about is the idea that many of you might have, experiences or things or resources that you've been building or creating that all are going to be, I'm sure, incredibly interesting for us and useful for launching this program and making sure that it has the impact that we all want. And I think we all probably share that vision.
Özgün or Evrim, I mean, have you seen similar things with other teachers you've pulled into systems thinking, or?
I can say we were lucky, as I said before. We had a few teachers in our school working with Emre Bey, so they were volunteered, and then they started speaking the language in the school, and then we kind of wondered, what is that? Shall we learn it? And then gradually, the people who would like to implement learned it from them. And then we went to the trainings and everything. Then I heard from some new teachers some hesitation before starting, because they said, I think we need to be more comfortable with the tools and everything, and then maybe later we can start implementing. And we said, it's okay, you don't have to use it, because it's flexible. As I said before, PYP, when we are planning with my teachers, we said, oh, why don't we use this tool to use instead of this? Or why don't we create a graph with system thinking? And bit by bit, we started to implement. That's why it wasn't a big deal. But I agree with some teachers, the new ones, can be hesitant, and it's okay.
When I first started, I was also nervous how I'm going to use the system thinking tools. Like, I was thinking about the theme and the title specifically, but when you spend time with system thinking tools and engage with an approach, it's like a mindset, like tools. Like, when you see that tools, like, it's not something standalone, like it should be embedded into your curriculum, right? So when you see that, you don't need to think about like, how are you going to use it? It just comes naturally. So yeah, I know I had that challenges too. Like, I was lucky when I was working in Turkey that I had like a really supportive leadership team, and then the other teachers were just so interested in system thinking too. But still, some cases you don't have enough support, maybe from your school or maybe from your colleagues, because when it comes to like teaching is a really busy environment. So they have a lot of things to finish. They have to match the curriculum outcomes. They often feel like they already have a lot of to cover. So system thinking can initially feel like an extra responsibility, maybe. Because when I like first mentioned in here Toronto, like they felt like, oh, okay, we don't have time for this. Like, it's great, but how are we going to implement it? Like, especially for those who are new to system thinking, never heard of it. But what has helped me to shifting the perspective, like as I said before, like this is not something additional. I see that as a tool, can be used with everything we already teach. This is like an approach, like a mindset. Once that mindset is in place, it actually becomes more manageable and more natural for you. And what has sustained me above all is the impact on students, I think. When you see how they begin to think more deeply, like make connections and engage more meaningfully with complex real world issues, it becomes very clear why this work matters for all of us. I think that's my motivation too.
Great, thank you. Let's get some more voices in here. We'll go to Henny and then Ride and Christian, and we'll build the queue from there. Henny?
Okay, to answer Erwin's question about the materials already integrating system thinking, that's regenerative economics.earth. Then to address the topic about how teachers can be more involved, I know from another group that are using the DSRP method and the VMCL method designed by Cabrera, that they are using both parallel. So they are both applying system thinking in their organization. In your case, it would be the IB organization, school management and stuff, where the teachers already learn the benefits of system thinking in their own profession, and then they are more inclined to also apply it to their lessons. So that might be an idea. And the question I had was that Kirsten, was her name Kirsten Costens, I think, was talking about cognitive skills that are necessary, and there was not so much research done on that. And did you ever think about the cognitive skills that might be necessary to implement system thinking?
Yeah, I think it's not just the cognitive skills, though, it's also the kind of affective skills, or if you call them competencies. So one of the things we're looking at in the course is the assessment of the course, as you can imagine. So we haven't done a traditional exam assessment. We've done project-based tasks. We've done unseen case studies produced by the IB, but we've also done like a competencies portfolio where it really looks at the kinds of skills that the students really need to develop to support this kind of work. So we've made it an explicit part of the courses that they're keeping this competency portfolio all the way through the course, and then they curate an extract of it that they submit to the IB for assessment, but very much focused on exactly that, the skills that they will need. Because even collaboration is a really good example. You can't just, assume that they know how to collaborate. It needs to be very explicit and visible for this kind of work. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would
no,
add to that.
sorry, just to be more clear, when I was referring to cognitive skills, I shared something just now in the chat, and then somebody said shared a document. I went over it pretty quickly, and then it said it was more like a Swiss Army knife for cognitive skills that you need for system thinking. So I wasn't so much talking about what you're saying, collaborative. Those are more social skills. I was really talking about thinking, being able to think in systems.
I think in the course there is a distinction there also, because there's something about the kind of the collaborative element of systems thinking, the idea that because in order to sort of map a system accurately or to really understand it, you need input from multiple perspectives, and the idea that that might be a collaborative process, I think is one of the things there. And again, this is where, of course, we can draw some lines between the clearer sort of model-based approaches to systems thinking, and then the others that might be more open-ended sort of thinking tools that are a little bit more general. And this is also where there are decisions, I think, for all of us to make, is like, which bits of kind of like models that are essentially things that you could develop almost in isolation, versus what are these tools that are really for collective thinking as groups. Some of them overlap and some of them don't. But again, this plays a kind of a part in the cognitive side too, because actually in order to ideate and come up with thinking collectively, there is a cognitive development that's required for that. But then there's also something about the kind of the students' ability to deal with ambiguity. I think it's many students are very used to a kind of very linear thinking, and that is part of, I think, what Peter Senge was talking about the kind of the model of education that we have. And so students that are really good students are really good at this linear thinking because it gets them to the target that they want. And then when they're suddenly put into the space of kind of thinking about much more ambiguity or with things that are very complex or interdependent in some kind of way, they actually struggle with it. And this is one of the things that we're still trying to figure out, because there's, at least we haven't found a great deal of literature on how to get a 16-year-old to deal with kind of thinking about things that are ambiguous or things that are complex in this kind of interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary space. So these are all things that are very interesting to explore.
It's also something we hope the pilot will help us. That's the point of doing a pilot as well. So, for example, we've been quite open with what tools students and teachers use. But what we've said, for example, is they have to do like a detailed critical evaluation of the strengths and limitations of 2 of the tools that they use during one of their investigations and things like that. So at this point, we've left it quite open because we want to see what the pilot schools choose when they have loads of freedom. And then in the 2030 version, we might need to tighten up a bit and say, actually, here are 5 required things we want you to do. But for now, we've left it super open. But what we have required is use something, and then we want a real critical, getting at that critical thinking of evaluating strengths and weaknesses and looking at it from different perspectives and coming to conclusions about the usefulness of the tools that you used and things like that. So I would say very much, as Eivind said, a work in progress over the next few years. We're in our infancy with this course, so we're looking for lots of input and improvements over the next couple of years to get it in better shape to go out to the world.
Yeah, I think we all understand works in progress.
Yes.
Right, Aid, you had a question. Do you want to?
I think I asked long, complex questions, so I think I'm going to skip it, and I'll reach out the email. But I absolutely love this. I just want to say that I was an IB student, and I'm so thrilled that this is happening. And also it's funny because I do ask questions and think about things from like this emotional social learning idea. Like, I'm not an educator. I'm doing research on systems leadership and non-directive executive coaching as a tool of systems leadership. So it's a really different perspective than a lot of the other people in this room. But it's funny because I also grew up in BC, and apparently that's a social emotional learning leader area. So I wonder, and you have a school out of Vancouver. So do you notice a difference among the schools in how they're approaching this? Like, and is there already a trend, or have you not started with that yet?
So we're actually getting the 4 schools together. No, so we're getting the 4 schools together in Vancouver in a couple of months, actually, in May. We're all going to Vancouver and getting together the 4 schools. But one of the things, for example, is it's more just the flavour. I would say it's essentially quite similar, but there's a little bit of a difference of flavour. So like the school in BC, for example, they are doing some interesting things around incorporating Indigenous perspectives on sustainability and 7-generation approaches to sustainability within their systems thinking. Or the school in Atlantic are doing a little bit more on kind of futures design and kind of futures thinking and regenerative leadership. So there's lots of overlap and similarity, but a little bit different. But I don't know, Eivind, what you would say. Do you notice a big difference or with the schools?
No, right. It's true. Probably too early to say. I couldn't say that there's a distinct flavor. I mean, right now we're all kind of grappling with a lot of the same questions, so we're pretty much in the same boat, just trying to figure out how can we turn this into the most exciting teaching and learning experience that we possibly can. So far we feel like we're doing the same thing.
Kristen, you want to go ahead with your question? And I know you've been spending a lot of time on the cognitive space. If you have anything you want to say about that. So.
Yeah, I was actually just I had a couple of questions, 2 very different ones. The first one was, I've got my kids here and they distract me a lot, and I'm not sure if you mentioned exactly what courses this would be in the IB. So I think you said it would be in the diploma program. Is that an optional course, like students could choose biology or choose English?
Yeah, so that's the plan. So just to answer that one before I get confused, because otherwise I won't remember. Yeah, the plan is it's an option, like it's an elective course, but it's a double course. So it takes the place of two of their courses. But yeah, options. So in the schools, we've got maybe like a third of the kids are opting to do it, and other in place of their biology course or in place of their French course or whatever. But yeah, option within the diploma.
Right. Great. And the other question is, if there is like a theoretical grounding, like is it more biased towards system dynamics or cybernetics or general systems theory, or is there anything particular that it's grounded in?
It's a little bit of a mush, I would say, a little bit of a combination of things. I think the key thing is trying to have the kind of action orientation. So the kind of that I would say is the thing that probably makes it a little bit different. It draws on, it's not a very purist. I wouldn't say it sits very strongly in one very pure tradition. It draws on multiple things. But I think the thing that distinguishes, and that's why we called it systems transformation instead of systems thinking, is we wanted it to be understanding and exploring systems, but then actually putting it into practice in projects, in interventions, in actually doing some inquiry-based projects of your own as students. So I think that's probably the thing that defines it a little bit, or gives it a bit of its IB flavor as well, is its systems, and then how do you bring about change in systems? How are you a change maker in the world? How do you transform systemic issues? How do you make a difference? So how do you do something about it? Not just how do you learn about it, but then do something. I think that's probably the thing. But no, it's not a very purist. We've left, again, during the pilot, we didn't want to do that. We wanted to leave it super open and see what directions the schools and the teachers go in. Eventually, we probably will converge a bit more onto a slightly more coherent approach. But at the moment, we're in divergent phase. We're trying to get as much input as possible at the moment.
And just
Right.
talking from the perspective of the teaching too, I think what is most likely, what I reckon might be the best sort of output here, and I think that would be in line with the IB's sort of model of having a lot of autonomy for schools and teachers, is really to give teachers enough tools to be able to sort of look at different students and see, okay, what is this student's best entry point into thinking about complexity and thinking about systems. And there will be some that really will thrive in models and looking at changes over time and things like that. But there will also be those that thrive in something much more perhaps abstract or artistic or data driven, like in terms of representing data visually in different ways. And ultimately, I think it's like if the student is engaging with complexity, if they're able to look at big complex issues and understand them more profoundly than they did before, then I think that's ultimately what the course is trying to do. So we really want to see like all of the tools be available, but possibly students taking a range of different approaches to what tools are right for them.
So I know we're coming to the end of our time, sadly. We could continue this conversation for several hours probably. I think what we'd probably like to do is figure out how does this community support the IB program as you're trying to build those resources. What specifically do those resources look like, whether they're curricular materials, training materials, mentorship, things like that. Evrim and Özgün both have a lot of experience with what those supports look like from their perspective in the PYP. How do we replicate that for the other IB programs, right? So, and I think probably need to cut off the conversation at this point. Diana, if you want to wrap this up, you're on mute. So,
thank you. This was a wonderful way to end our conference, and it's very interesting, and we would like to be able to help. We have experience using systems in different disciplines and also as a way to study complex systems problems. I think there's a lot of overlap in the experience that we have and the experience you have. And so we definitely would like to build a conversation where we can be of service. So thank you for coming. And this has been, well, I liked our first, this has been a terrific combination of people in this particular conference. So thank you for coming. And we will try to do this every year, but the idea is to connect us. Those of us studying systems, we want to help each other and not feel like we're the only person in our school doing this. And that's the purpose of this symposium. Please save the chat, because there's a lot of information there that you will, I hope, find useful. Contact us. We, through the System Dynamics Society, if you know somebody here who knows us, anyway, Emery, would you put in our email so people can contact us? Thank you. We really appreciate you and all the work you're doing, and for coming here for 5 hours and helping to make this a success. We appreciate it very much. And we hope we'll see you in our monthly offerings of webinars and systems thinking meetings, and next year when we do this again. Thank you for your presentations and for your great ideas. So we'll see you. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so
Thank you all.
much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.